Welcome to the Healing Bitch podcast. I'm Jackie Ortez, a psychic medium that has a penchant for all things spiritual. During this time with me, we will explore the world of energy and how it affects us all. Each podcast will address a question submitted from my listeners that I feel I have the authority to answer. So get comfy, throw on your headphones, and let's see what happens. Hi, and welcome back to the Healing Bitch podcast. We're now on episode 5. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about human design, Akashic Records, and then we're going to go into some stuff about Reiki training. But I wanted to tell a little story about my experience with human design. I was introduced to human design this past July when I went to a retreat in Arizona. I went there were a bunch of activities that were planned, and then there was like talk time planned as well with no actual subject. Everyone else that attended the retreat happened to be taking this human design class with Sarah, who is the retreat facilitator. So that's all they wanted to talk about. And let me tell you, we went on hours and hours and hours. I learned so much about myself, and it was really accurate. So if you don't know what human design is, a little summary of it is basically the concept is that our souls have designed themselves before we were dropped into our physical bodies, which were in our mother's uterus. We decided what gifts we want to come here with. We decided what we want to look like, whose lives we wanted to be in. We also decided how we wanted to go through the world, what lessons we had to learn, what shadows and gifts. And it's just a really beautiful thing. And after the retreat, I really needed to learn more. I wanted to. And Sarah was doing, her name is Sarah Gamez, and she is the owner and founder of the Sacred Sandbox. After the retreat, she decided to do a human design for your business course. And of course, I was in a second. We did the course over a weekend, and I learned how I needed to run my business. I also learned that I am the great experimenter. So I am supposed to be in life experimenting and then storytelling to teach other people things that they need to learn. And that's what my power is. My power is my voice. So I have been thinking about doing a podcast for quite a bit of time. don't think I mentioned it to absolutely anybody. And Sarah was like, podcast. She said that. And I was like, you know what? I've wanted to do that. I guess this is my sign to do that. And within a week and a half, I booked the studio and I published my first podcast. So I am a big believer in human design. Today, we're going to be talking to Lauren, who is a practitioner of human design and Akashic Records, which is something that I don't have experience in, but I'm really, really interested in. So let's get started. And let me just do my little intro. Lauren is a dedicated practitioner of human design, Gene Keys, and Akashic Records. With a passion for helping others rediscover their true selves, Lauren guides individuals on a journey to authentic living. By integrating these profound systems, she empowers others to connect with their inner wisdom and live their longest, most fulfilling lives. So let's get into it. Hi, so we're here with Lauren and a little bit about how we got connected. Oh, there's Amy saying hello. A little bit about how we got connected is we are both in a podcast group on Facebook, and I posted that I was looking for guests. Most of the people that responded to it were like, I'm in, with no description about what they do. But Lauren was really, really considerate and actually told me what she was into. So Lauren is into human design, which I told a little bit of a story before this about how much I'm into human design and how it led to this podcast. but she's also into Akashic Records, which I've never gotten done on myself. And I'm so interested in. So, Lauren, if you could just take us through how you got into this, and let's start there.
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jackie. It's such a pleasure to be here. So how I got into all of this was really kind of I feel like most people's story in some way, where I ended up having my firstborn child around 30, and that's when I felt like my whole world flipped upside down. And it wasn't necessarily because I was nervous about motherhood or anything like that. It was more so, well, what about me? What do I do now? I still have a life. Of course, I want to be a present mother and do all the things that way. And that's exciting, but more so like, well, who really am I now? Because I don't just identify as a
Mm-hmm.
mom. I feel like I'm all the things uh, on different days. So it was I was going through a little bit of a tough time where I had postpartum depression for a little bit and felt very disconnected with everyone, and especially my child. And I could not talk to anybody about it because I was the first of my friend groups to have children, at least close friends, and couldn't really relate to my parents when they're reminiscing on when we were younger. So it was really hard. I didn't really have anybody to turn to. And
Mm-hmm.
I grew up Catholic. So I've had that ideology of Catholicism and whatnot and faith, but I never necessarily believed in all that. So I really didn't have anything to fall back on. So I felt like I was spiraling. Then ended up one night just kind of scrolling along TikTok like we all do,
Mm-hmm.
and I just discovered tarot cards and more so like spirituality in different types of works and modalities. And I tried all the things over the course of what felt like years, but I feel like it was in a span of 6 months. And I came across human design, and that was my access point into faith and to just rediscovering myself. And then after being with human design for about a year or so, I then stumbled upon Akashic Records. And that's when I felt like human design and Akashic Records, those two things that I studied and that I was practicing pretty vigilantly, I felt like it was a perfect marriage for me to really accelerate my growth. So it's been about a year and a half now that I've fully embraced the Akashic Records, and it's been life changing, needless to say. The
Mm-hmm.
outlook that I have on life, the way that I approach life, the way that I look at situations, I feel like a different person. I feel like just a person that is better for not only myself, but for my children and my relationship. And trust me, I still have my days, still human in that regard. But
Mm-hmm.
I would, I would never change anything in the past because it led me to all of this. And I'm just really, really excited to continue on my own journey and to help other people and to also witness other people's change and be in circles, such as yourself, to talk about all these things, because this is the real stuff to me in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that even though it probably was really hard when you had your child to think about the fact of what about me, I think it actually shows some balance that you kept instead of throwing yourself completely into motherhood, because I know that's what we're taught that we need to do is throw ourselves into motherhood. And you still had the what about me thing, which I don't know. I think that shows absolutely beautiful balance, to be completely honest with you. And it's also, I wish more people would explore the spiritual side just like you are, because you're right. It brings in this like whole new aspect of life and this whole new aspect of faith and feeling and just a different layer that
Yes.
most people don't see instead of just having our earthly layer.
Yeah.
So, Akashic Records, can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yes. So the Records is essentially a frequency or where your soul keeps every past life, current life, future life, and all timelines, dimensions, and realities. It is where you can access your higher self. And it's really meant for you to uncover your purpose. It's really meant for you to identify any sort of blockages or limiting beliefs that you may be having or that you've adopted or been conditioned, to really kind of untether, explore maybe contractually, what your soul came here to learn, and the lessons that maybe you still need to learn, or to get through, or what you can let go of, and helping and tethering those has been a big one for me over the past year or so, specifically with the records. But essentially, they kind of describe it as this big library, and you have all of these different books, and really it's all the different lives that you've lived, that your soul has actually lived, that you have access to when you're asking questions within your records. So it's not necessarily a place and space. It's more so a frequency, and every single person has their own dial or has their own frequency wavelength, and that's how you are able to access your records in the Akashic field. It's
That
like the
sounds
quantum field, essentially.
that sounds so fucking cool. Like
Yeah, girl, it is.
the way you explained it just sounds so amazing that like everybody has their own frequency and that we even
Yes.
have access to all
Yes.
of that information to help us. So is there like a specific way that you can think of or a specific scenario where it's helped you in your life?
Oh God, yes. I think specifically it's helped me a lot understand the purpose of what I'm doing right now, specifically with kids and my business. So I think it's beautiful to reflect back on how I felt very disconnected to my child, my firstborn, and how I thought, all I wanted to be when I grew up was just to have a career. And I didn't want to have, my child keep me back from anything. Because I was very much in my masculine. I was very much go, go, go. You just do it. I was never really tapping into the feminine. Of course, I like girly things. I like nice things, but my approach and even the way I talk sometimes can come across very forceful and very aggressive in some ways. And I've just noticed myself be in that masculine when I do reflect back on it, and how my children, I feel like now have switched me into my feminine, and being able to tap into my records specifically for my business, and understanding that my business actually aligns very heavily with children. Being able to understand, well, in past lives, or, the reasons why I'm thinking this, is there something that I need to learn or something I need to move through with, and being able to go inward within my own records and ask my team, or ask my higher self what it is that I need to take away from this, or what I still need to push through. I feel like it's really helped be able to plan the way that I want to move forward in this direction with my business. Because right now I still have a full-time job. I work for a gaming company. I'm head of their HR, and the corporate world was my life for the past going on, I think 9 or 10 years now. And knowing that I'm completely, I've learned everything that I need to learn there, and seeing how my life has shifted ever since accessing my records, and seeing where my heart and passion actually is, and where I'm getting traction as it relates to children, and just being able to look into your own spiritual authority to guide you and to help other people. I feel like that's been a real eye opener when going into the records, and understanding these traits or these behavioral patterns when I'm acting more in my masculine, versus kind of like allowing and receiving, which is very hard to do because we think on the literal sense, well, then you do nothing and you just kind of like wait to be taken care of. And that's not necessarily how it is. I've experienced it. For me, it's a lot of, in my records, in the beginning, it was very quiet. It was very much symbolic for patience and sitting in stillness, and just allowing things to come through in terms of, intrusive thoughts, whatever it is. But then being able to recognize, using your clairs, being able to recognize, when spirit is dropping in, or you are getting downloads from your records, versus maybe the ego coming, or those thoughts coming through that are more doubtful or more skeptical. So it's been helpful to practice religiously going in, and just being able to identify my masculine and feminine as it relates to the business and the career trajectory and my life, essentially, of where I'm going now.
Yeah, and the subject of the masculine and the feminine, I feel, is so misunderstood. Because like you were saying, we think of society way of feminine is dressing up and putting makeup on, and masculine is just like brute force and being manly and stuff like that. But it's the complete opposite. So many women are living in their masculine because masculine energy is basically doing, it's taking action. So many women that we know that have children and are homemakers and working, what are their lives? Their lives are doing, their lives are planning, their lives are having the actions, their lives are those big calendars that you see that are color coded with all the activities. That is the masculine. And the feminine is sitting back and receiving and allowing people to help you. And as a society, we were taught to be homemakers and everything. And I don't want to get too much into this, but we were taught to be homemakers and everything, which is in our masculine. And I feel like the feminine population is finally starting to step into the real feminine now. But I digress. Yes. I just thought that was a really good point that you brought up about the masculine and feminine. And you said something that in my mind, I was like, oh, we want to come back to that. But of course, so with Akashic Records, do you find it easier to do it for yourself, or do you find it easier to have somebody walk you through it?
I find it easier for someone to walk me through it. Mm-hmm. So if we were to do a session, I feel like I would get more from you than I would with myself, because I'm still in this space where I can see when, is this really my claircognizance? Is this really my higher self coming through? Mm-hmm. Or is this my mind? And understanding that my mind is very good with patterns and being able to predict in that way from a logical perspective, that I tend to not, there's like 50-50 of me that I believe it and then I don't believe it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not too sure. So I love when people explore my records. I don't necessarily like going in, especially my personal records. When I say personal records, I mean more so on the personal side. When I'm in my business, and this is, I think, where that masculine, again, comes up a little bit more structured. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's the right thing when I'm in there and I'm getting those questions or I'm getting those answers as it relates to my business. I feel more connected that way, or more in tune. Whereas I feel like if it's more of a personal request that I'm asking, specifically, contracts between Chris and myself, my husband, or with my children, and the lessons I need to learn there, or why we're showing up, in each other's lives, it feels a little more darker to me, or I kind of get tripped up. So I love when people go on my records to read those. And it's obviously just so much easier to read other people's records for me, especially people I don't know, because does get a little scary because there's a lot of trust that comes into play here. Mm-hmm. And this is an example, I feel like, too, of just the receiving aspect in the feminine and just allowing what comes to you. And even if it doesn't make sense, because the feminine is very much irrational and illogical, and it's not going to feel like it makes sense. I feel like that's a big test, that I'm constantly being put through, and just whatever comes through, just allow it to come through, and, whatever will resonate with the person.
Yeah, and the trust of what's supposed to come through in that specific session is what's supposed to. Can I give you a little bit of a message, actually, that I just got while you were talking?
Hell yeah, let's go.
I don't usually do this, but as you were talking, basically what Spirit was telling me is that your practice is going to expand so much more. And actually, it's interesting because you have very similar to me, where your power is in the shadow side of working with people. I feel like you are able to dig into that shadow side and in a very approachable way with your clients, and help them understand it as not a scary thing, as something that they need to shake hands with and hug with and make it a part of themselves. So I wanted to ask, is that something that you are in alignment with? Is that something you've been thinking of?
Yes, very much. I very much resonate with that message, because I feel like even being in HR, I deal with a lot of different personality types. And being in different organizations, whether it be domestic in the US or if it's international, I feel as though I can be more of a chameleon because I try not to take life that seriously. And nothing's really shocking. So your deepest, darkest secrets, like that's where I want to start. I don't really want to start on the surface level stuff. Like tell me what's wrong today and let's see how we can, fix it or improve it, or like let's give it a different perspective. So I feel like people that tend to flock or like be attracted to me are people that are, I don't want to say in crisis because that sounds super severe, but it's more so like it's troubling, and there's darkerness that comes out more so than the surface level. Everything's great and fine, and how are the kids, and oh, the weather's nice. Like it's not surface level individuals. We go pretty deep with me.
Yeah, same. I feel like everyone that comes to me is in crisis mode, and they've and they've tried absolutely everything else, or they just need to get clarity that like what they're doing is the right direction. So we do definitely have a similar approach to practices with that, but I understand absolutely that it's easier for a practitioner to bring you through a session, because that's how I feel with Reiki too. I do Reiki on myself. I work on myself, but when I'm receiving it, I literally just like flop on the table and let myself just absorb all the information. I don't try to receive messages. If something pops in my head, it pops in my head and I make a note for later. But doing sessions on yourself, doing readings and stuff like this, your ego is like dying to get in the way. Absolutely. And any little thing in your mind that's like, oh, I haven't eaten breakfast today, I'm kind of hungry, like can totally click off that stream of channeling that you have. Yeah. That's so cool.
And the ego too. I mean, I've witnessed myself, especially over the past couple of days. It's funny that you mentioned Reiki because I'm going through my Reiki level 1 right now. I had my second class yesterday. So I've been catching myself when my ego does pop up and wanting to prove itself or to be right. And it comes out more so, brief example, might be a little touchy for some, but, I say that I go deep. I do, because nothing really rattles me. We were talking about the election, and he was giving his opinion. I was giving mine. And this was, when was it? 2 days? No, on Tuesday. So 2 days ago, I guess. And I could tell he's trying to share his opinion about something and I'm sharing mine, and he's not getting what I'm saying. So I'm feeling the need to prove something to him, to validate like what I'm saying is right. And if you get it and you understand it, then you're going to make my ego feel good, because then it's a way of like accepting or feeling like you're on my side. So I notice these things and I have to kind of like, fucking woosah, like just chill out. It's not that serious. Because he's doing it and then I'm doing it, and it's like a whole thing. So at the end of the day, it was a 2-hour conversation. It was beautiful. It was good. We agreed to disagree on some, but like, there's also beauty in being able to catch yourself in live time, and also being vulnerable, and like me having to say, I apologize for being loud. I don't mean to get loud. So I appreciate the ego and I see why it's there. But I feel like the quicker that we can catch ourselves, because all of this is just self-awareness. We're all self-realizing what we actually are. So I feel like the more we can catch ourselves in live time and share those moments to allow people to, realize that it's really not that big a deal to have what we deem as an insecurity, be able to example that for others, then I feel like that self-awareness or that pulling back and not living on autopilot becomes lessened throughout relationships.
Yeah. And just so everyone that's listening knows, we are recording this on Friday, November 8th. So she had this conversation on election day. So that's probably why it was so heated also, because this is going to come out next week. So it's going to be a week after November 15th. But yeah, buckle up, girl. because once you have your attunements for Reiki, you think you're feeling stuff now. There is no turning back. There is no turning
So
back.
excited. I'm
It
like,
is so
come on.
exciting. It is so exciting. It is so beautiful, sometimes very jarring, but you see even more so than you already are what really matters in life. Like what the truth is and what matters versus what we've been told our whole lives matter. So I'm very excited for you. I
Thank you. I just
almost
got the
wish
chills.
I almost wish there were some days that I could just go back to like the week before I did my Reiki training and then like see how, because I was a hot ass mess when I did mine. I was not in a good place. Horrible, 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 horrible. But like, I almost wish I could, well, I don't almost wish, I do wish that I could see the difference in myself before I got into this and after. So even though you're already in it, like maybe journal a little bit about how it is now while you're going through the process and the changes. Because when I teach Reiki, what I do is I make everybody do a 21-day detox where they do Reiki on themselves every day and then they journal every day about how they felt before and how they felt after, just so they could go back to it in the future and just see how they felt going through the process. Maybe you feel nothing. Well, I don't feel anything usually when I'm working on myself. Like sometimes my body reacts, but not that often. It's not like when somebody else works on me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's good advice. I'm gonna start doing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I feel like it's good to document the journey. And I wish I documented it. I'm fucking horrible with journaling. I'm at voice notes. I don't know what in God's name I'm going to do with my all the voice notes that are on my phone. But when it comes to like journaling, I can't like I get into a mode or I don't get into a mode, and I wish that I would document stuff more or have documented stuff more through my journey because I'm so different than I was that first day of the Reiki training. So I'm excited for you.
thank you. Yeah, the journal, like I feel like my brain goes faster than my motor skills and my hands, so it gets really
Yes,
tired.
always.
And that's why I'm like, oh, but I am practicing more, not necessarily journaling, how I'm feeling, because it is a little bit hard to identify how I'm feeling, because I
Yes.
don't really feel much. It's more so I intellectualize my feelings, which I have to learn to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, really be able to sense that in my body. So I feel like where I was a hot mess and I wish that maybe like I should have been journaling then. It was actually when I went through my Akashic training. I felt like during that whole time leading up to it, and even the first day when I had my training, it was a group of women I didn't know, and I'm the only one, crying on the call. I was extremely vulnerable. And I feel like
Mm.
that was the first time that I truly was just like, I don't give a fuck who's on this call. I don't care.
Good
This is
for
about
you.
me. And I just
Mm-hmm.
was, unapologetically just sobbing. So I feel that happened to me during that time, during the Akashic Records time. And even before, I had no idea what the Akashic Records were. I didn't even look it up. Typically, I'll look up some stuff here and there, and I'm not so much like I don't care to get into the weeds of things or the details of things. Like I either know that I want to do it or that I don't. And when I talked to the woman, Heather Ivany, I went through her training.
Mm-hmm.
When I talked to her, she told me, what it's like, and I'm like, okay, sign me up. I didn't even actually have a reading yet with her. So it was just kind of like this instinctual thing. And then with Reiki, I kind of feel I was pushing it off for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to believe, that it is divine timing going through the processes and the tools and the modalities that I've learned, and Reiki being this almost I feel like this is going to really kind of tie in and weave throughout everything that I do going forward. I can see how I can use this, for myself, for others, even if I'm not necessarily a practitioner of
Mm-hmm.
it in a traditional way. I feel like I can use this in an unconventional way with the practices that are most aligned to me at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suggest people learning Reiki if they're even just going through something so they can get more in touch with themselves and all that. But so curiosity struck me when you were talking about like decisions and how you do that because in my human design, I am a sacral authority. So I know immediately whether something is a yes or no for me. And I've always been the type of person that I don't learn that much about things before I do them. I just like jump off the cliff without a parachute and then I figure it out later. And it has served me well in some places. And then other places, it's caused me a lot of time and stress. But then I get to, I'm the great experimenter. Then I get to teach others how to do it more simply. So, what what's your authority?
I'm an emotional authority. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I'm an emotional one.
Hmm.
Uh, I am a 2-5 emotional manifesting generator. So that this is actually something I literally was journaling right before jumping on with you, but journaling, aka studying.
Yeah.
I was writing more so in depth about my authority because that's something that I'm really trying to really embody and live
Hmm.
by and pick up on those cues more. Because it's really hard as an emotional because there's no truth in the now. So I will have those like, yes, I want to do it, or no, no, I don't want to do it. But I don't really know until the time
No,
comes,
you have to
and
wait.
even that, it's not even 100%. And that's the
Hmm.
struggle I feel with any sort of emotional. So it's like, I am still figuring out what works for me in that way. Because it works and obviously depends on your emotional wave and where that is, the collective, the tribal, it's an individual wave. So it's like a whole thing. And I also believe that one to make it super black and white. And this is the approach if you're this, because it's, first of all, way too complex to
Hmm.
just be a linear approach to something or one size fits all, because everyone is uniquely designed, as you know. So it's been when and myself and my daughter, my youngest, she's an emotional generator. My oldest is a sacral generator, and my husband is a sacral generator. So
Yeah,
we're all,
I'm a sacral
yeah.
generator, but it's just, and I saw that my feelings are not emotional. So I just, it's really interesting because I thought growing up that I was overwhelmed by my own feelings. And I
Yeah.
wasn't. I'm so connected to the collective. It's not even funny. Like when the collective is feeling a certain way, I am feeling a certain way. And I had to take a step back. Like even this week, I have felt like pure crap, even though the election did not phase me in that
Mm-hmm.
way. But the
Mm-hmm.
collective has been so distraught and up and down and divided and everything. I had headaches. I've been taking 2 Epsom salt baths a day to try to get this energy
Actually,
out, going outside to cleanse. Like, and I have to remind myself, this isn't me. This is what, because I mean, I am tied to the collective and so deeply. It's absolutely crazy how much, but this was great. Is there any like last nugget that you want to leave for the audience?
I would just say to be yourself is to know yourself, and meaning, really start that discovery journey if you haven't. Start to question the decisions that you make, start to question your behaviors, start to question the people that you're around, your job, all the things. It's okay to question. Um, And I just think that at the end of the day, if we can go and we can actually live our authentic selves as long as possible, I feel like we will find more fulfillment than not. Because the biggest mission that I have is really to help the future generation live authentically as long as possible. I don't want, my children or anybody else's children to wait till their 30s, 40s, 50s to go through
Hmm.
all the things that we're going through right now. Because life can be so much more fun and experimental if we just understand that at the end of the day, it's not that serious. And that we are eternal beings and all the good stuff. And just look at things as lessons.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
And human design is just such a beautiful, like, blueprint that
yeah,
you can really see where your shadows are and you could see everything. So I'm going to put all the ways to find you in the description of this podcast. But can you tell us anyway? If somebody's
yeah.
interested in working with you, how can they connect with you?
Yes, yes. So you can connect with me at laurenfedak.com. I'm also on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. I have an Instagram as well, Lauren Fedak there. I have free resources I highly recommend people go check out, because one of the things for me is I want to empower people as much as possible in a very accessible way.
Mhm.
So I have a human design foundational report. I try to go into depth as it relates to your type, your strategy, your authority, your centers, your profile, and what that means for you and your design. And where I come in to work with you is more so on that embodiment piece. So working with you on, your actual chart, or doing an Akashic record and a chart reading, and giving you some tactical tools, and practical ways on how to embody your design. And then I actually have a program that is about 6 weeks. So we really go hand in hand. And I'm pretty much all up in your grill every single week, and keeping you accountable
Good
with
for
all the
you.
things. Yeah.
Good for you.
But yes, that's all on my website. Everything can be found there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you, Jackie.